In the village of Okwudili, where the red earth meets the endless sky, there lived a woman named Adunni whose beauty was matched only by her cruelty. Her skin gleamed like polished bronze, her voice carried like honey on the wind, and her laughter, her laughter could make the birds forget their songs. But beneath this beauty lay a heart as cold as the harmattan winds. Adunni lived in a fine compound with walls painted the color of sunset, where servants brought her water in clay pots and palm wine in calabashes, carved from the finest gourds. She wore wrappers of the richest ankara, her jewel tied high and proud, and gold bangles that sang with every movement of her wrists. But in a small hut at the edge of the same compound, behind the kitchen where the smoke from cooking fires never cleared, lived Mama Kemi, Adunni's mother. Mama Kemi was bent with age, her back curved like the crescent moon. Her wrapper was patched in so many places that the original pattern had long been forgotten. It was faded blue and yellow, torn at the edges, held together with careful stitches that spoke of poverty but also of dignity. Her feet were bare and cracked from walking the dusty paths to fetch water, and her hands were rough from years of grinding cassava and stirring pots of watery soup. The village would whisper when they saw them together, how could such a magnificent daughter treat her own mother like a stranger's servant? Every morning, as the sun painted the sky pink and gold, Mama Kemi would shuffle to her daughter's grand house. She would sweep the compound, prepare the morning meal of yam porridge and palm oil, and wash the calabashes from the night before. And every morning, Adunni would emerge from her room like a queen greeting her subjects. "Look at you," Adunni would say, her voice dripping with shame. "Look at that rag you call a wrapper. The neighbor's chickens dress better than you do." She would gesture dismissively at her mother's torn clothing. "How can you walk around looking like this? You embarrass me, old woman." Mama Kemi would lower her eyes and continue her work, her weathered hands steady as they swept the dust from her daughter's doorstep. But the neighbors noticed. Oh, how they noticed! That Adunni, the market women would whisper as they sold their tomatoes and peppers. "She treats her mother like a dog treats a bone, useful only when hungry. The ancestors are watching," old Papa Emeka would warn, shaking his gray head as he carved his wooden figures under the great baobab tree. "When a child forgets where she came from, the earth itself remembers." The seasons turned. Dry season gave way to rains, rains gave way to harvest, harvest gave way to the festival time, and still, Adunni's cruelty grew like weeds after a storm. During the new Yam Festival, when the whole village gathered to celebrate the first harvest, Adunni appeared in a wrapper so beautiful it seemed to capture sunlight in its threads. She had commissioned it specially from the finest weaver in 3 villages over. The gold thread caught the light, and the deep purple fabric flowed around her like water. Mama Kemi came to the festival wearing her same old wrapper, the blue and yellow one with its careful patches and frayed edges. She had washed it until the water ran clear and mended the newest tear with threads pulled from an old heti. "Mother," Adunni hissed when she saw her, "you cannot appear in public looking like that. You shame our family name. Go home and hide yourself." The old woman's eyes filled with tears that she quickly wiped away. "I have no other wrapper, my daughter. This is all I have." "Then you have nothing," Adunni replied coldly. "Stay hidden until you can dress properly." And so Mama Kemi turned away from the celebration, from the drums and dancing, from the feast of pounded yam and agusi soup that her own hands had helped prepare. She walked slowly back to her small hut, her patched wrapper trailing in the dust. The festival continued without her, but the ancestors had seen enough. Years passed like clouds across the sun. Adunni's beauty began to fade, as beauty always does, but her wealth remained. She married a merchant from Lagos, a man with many shops and trucks that carried goods to the northern cities. For a time, it seemed as though her cruelty had been rewarded. But fate, they say, is like the Niger River. It may change course, but it always finds the sea. The rains failed 3 years in a row. The merchant's trucks broke down on the long roads. His shops were robbed. The money disappeared like smoke in the harmattan wind. And slowly, surely, Adunni found herself stripped of everything. Everything except her aging mother and that old, patched wrapper. The fine house was sold. The servants left. The gold bangles were traded for bags of rice. And one evening, as the sun set red over the village of Okwudili, Adunni found herself standing before her mother's small hut with nothing but the clothes on, her back and tears in her eyes. "Mama," she whispered, her voice no longer commanding but broken. "Mama, I have nowhere else to go." Mama Kemi looked up from the pot of watery soup she was stirring. Her daughter stood before her, still beautiful but hollow-eyed, her expensive wrapper now dirty and torn from the long walk from the city. Without a word, the old woman rose and disappeared into her hut. Adunni waited, not knowing if she would be welcomed or turned away, as she had turned her mother away so many times before. When Mama Kemi returned, she carried something in her hands. It was her old wrapper, the blue and yellow one with its patches and careful mends. But as she held it up to the light of the setting sun, something impossible happened. The faded fabric began to shimmer. The patches revealed themselves to be not patches at all, but pieces of the finest kente cloth, woven with threads of real gold. The tears had been mended with silver thread that caught the light like captured stars. What had appeared to be a poor woman's rag was revealed to be a wrapper of incredible value, a royal cloth that had been disguised by powerful medicine. "My daughter," Mama Kemi said softly, "this wrapper belonged to your grandmother, and her grandmother before her. It carries the blessings of 7 generations of our ancestors. It has the power to bring prosperity to any family, but only when it is treated with respect, only when it is honored, not hidden away in shame." Adunni fell to her knees in the dust. "Mama, I didn't know. I thought, you thought your mother was something to be ashamed of," the old woman said, her voice gentle but firm. "You forgot that the river that nourishes the great tree begins as a small spring in the hills. You forgot that the foundation holds up the house even though it cannot be seen." As the wrapper continued to gleam in her mother's hands, Adunni understood. All those years when she had mocked her mother's poverty, her mother had been protecting something precious, waiting for her daughter to learn the value of things that cannot be bought in any market. Can you forgive me?" Adunni whispered. Mama Kemi smiled and wrapped the magical cloth around her daughter's shoulders. Immediately, the younger woman felt warmth spread through her body, and hope returned to her heart. "A mother's love is like the baobab tree," she said. "Its roots run deep, and its trunk grows strong. It provides shade in all seasons." And from that day forward, Adunni cared for her mother as a daughter should. She learned to cook the old recipes, to mend clothes with careful stitches, and to find richness not in gold bangles, but in the stories her mother told by firelight. The magical wrapper brought them prosperity again. But more than that, it brought them peace. The village elders still tell this story when the young ones grow too proud, when they forget the hands that fed them and the backs that carried them. They say that every mother carries invisible wealth, and every child who honors that wealth will never truly be poor. For as the ancestors knew, and as Adunni learned too late, the tree that forgets its roots in the dry season will not find water when the rains come.